They don't tell you this directly, but their biggest fear has never been your failure. It has always been the possibility of you being right. Every time they doubted you, every time they laughed, every time they dismissed your vision, there was a quiet voice inside of them that whispered, "But what if they're right?" That whisper terrified them more than anything. Because if you are right, it means their excuses crumble. If you are right, it means their doubts become lies. If you are right, it means they have wasted time mocking what they should have been building. You see, chosen ones are always misunderstood at first. You speak of things that haven't happened yet. You hold on to truths others cannot see. You prepare for doors that aren't even visible to the crowd. And because their vision is limited to what they can touch right now, they call you unrealistic. They say you're too bold, too confident, too different. But beneath all of that noise, their fear lingers. What if everything you've been saying turns out to be true? That thought keeps them awake more than your silence ever could. Their fear is not just about your words, it's about your consistency. You kept walking even when no one clapped. You kept standing even when everyone doubted. You kept planting seeds even when people said nothing would grow. And now, as things begin to shift in your favor, their fear is no longer hidden. They start watching more closely. Their laughter turns into silence. Their whispers turn into questions. They can't say it out loud, but they are starting to realize. The one they dismissed may have been right all along, and this terrifies them. Because if you are right, it means they were wrong. It means their lack of faith was weakness, their judgment was short-sighted, their rejection was misplaced. And people hate admitting that. They would rather call you crazy forever than admit you were right from the beginning. But life has a way of silencing mockery. Reality always bends toward truth, and chosen ones walk in truth long before the world can see it. Think of your own journey. How many times did you carry a vision in your heart that nobody else understood? How many times did you feel the sting of their laughter, the weight of their disbelief, the loneliness of being the only one who could see? And yet, deep inside, you knew. You couldn't explain how. You couldn't prove it yet, but you knew. That knowing wasn't arrogance. It was alignment. It was your spirit connecting with a reality that hadn't manifested yet. And now, as that reality begins to unfold, their biggest fear is coming true. You were right all along. This is the power of the chosen ones. Not that life is easy for you, not that people always support you, but that your conviction is unshakable even in the midst of disbelief. Your presence challenges their excuses. Your endurance confronts their surrender. Your success exposes their stagnation. And nothing terrifies them more than that. Because if you are right, then everything they told themselves to feel safe was a lie. And that truth is too heavy for them to carry. So remember this: when they mock you, when they doubt you, when they whisper behind your back, it's not always hatred. Sometimes it's fear. The fear that your vision will come true. The fear that your strength will outlast their disbelief. The fear that your silence hides a power they cannot stop. And when that fear proves true, they will have no choice but to face what they ran from. You were never crazy. You were chosen. Before we go deeper, I want you to understand something important. You didn't click on this video by accident. This message has found you because it carries something meant for you right now. That's why I encourage you to stay until the very end, because in the final part, there are special messages that will unlock something powerful in you. And while you're here, take a moment to write your warmest wishes in the comments and add the number 777 beside them. This is more than just a comment. It is an act of alignment, a way to release your intention into the universe, a way to declare that what you are believing for is already on its way to you. And don't forget to subscribe, because this is not just content. It is a community for chosen ones like you, who dare to believe even when others doubt. Now let's return to the truth. Their biggest fear has never been your failure. They expected that. They even prayed for it in silence, waiting for you to collapse under the weight of your own conviction. Failure would have proven them right, and nothing would have satisfied their pride more. But success is what they never wanted to face. Because when you succeed, it exposes the weakness of their disbelief. When you succeed, it proves that your vision wasn't madness, it was foresight. And when you succeed, it shows that their laughter was never about you. It was about their fear of you being right. This is why the chosen ones walk through seasons of heavy resistance. People push back, not because you're wrong, but because they're afraid you might be right. They mock, not because your vision is worthless, but because they're afraid it might manifest. They withdraw, not because you failed them, but because your endurance makes them uncomfortable. They know deep down that if you keep going, eventually reality will bend in your direction. And that thought terrifies them. Think of how many times you've spoken about what you knew was coming, only to be met with rolled eyes or dismissive laughter. They couldn't see it, so they couldn't believe it. But you could. You felt it. You sensed it. You prepared for it long before it arrived. And that preparation is what separates you. They laughed while you worked. They mocked while you planted. They doubted while you watered. And now that the harvest is beginning to break the ground, their fear is no longer hidden. It is written on their faces. But here's the paradox. Their doubt was fuel. Every time they said you couldn't, you strengthened your belief that you could. Every time they dismissed you, you refined your vision. Every time they called you crazy, you built deeper roots of conviction. Without their resistance, you wouldn't have grown the way you did. Without their disbelief, you wouldn't have discovered how powerful your own faith really is. They thought they were breaking you, but they were building you. They thought they were silencing you, but they were sharpening you. They thought they were stopping you, but they were setting the stage for you to prove them wrong. And that's why their biggest fear is you being right. Because if you're right, it means their disbelief wasn't caution, it was weakness. If you're right, it means their ridicule wasn't wisdom, it was insecurity. If you're right, it means their doubt wasn't logical, it was fear. And none of them want to admit that. It's easier for them to keep mocking than to face themselves. But reality is undeniable. When truth manifests, no opinion can erase it. So remember this every time you feel the sting of rejection, every time you hear the sound of their laughter, every time you walk alone with your vision. They are afraid. Afraid of your persistence, afraid of your faith, afraid of your silence, and most of all, afraid of you being right. And when the chosen ones are right, it doesn't just change their own lives, it changes everything around them. That is why they fear you. That is why you are misunderstood. And that is why you must keep going. Their biggest fear was never your ambition, it was your accuracy. They could tolerate your dreams as long as they stayed distant and unreal. They could mock your passion as long as nothing tangible came from it. But the moment your words began to match reality, everything shifted. Because now it wasn't just an idea, it was evidence. Evidence that your vision was not fantasy, but foresight. Not arrogance, but alignment. Not madness, but destiny. And evidence cannot be silenced. When chosen ones rise, the world is forced to reconcile with the truth. The same people who called you foolish are left scrambling to explain how you ended up being right. They look for excuses. You just got lucky. The timing just worked out. Anyone could have done that. Because admitting the truth is too heavy. Admitting the truth means confessing that they lacked courage, that they gave up too soon, that they mocked the very thing they should have been building in themselves. Your success exposes their surrender, and nothing terrifies them more. Think about it. How many times did you carry knowledge, intuition, or vision that others dismissed? You saw potential where they saw emptiness. You prepared for opportunities they said would never come. You spoke about doors that hadn't even been built yet. And because they couldn't see it, they laughed. But now those same doors are opening. Those same opportunities are appearing. Those same seeds are breaking through the ground. And the truth they feared most is staring them in the face. You were right all along. And here's the paradox. They wanted to see you fail because your failure would have validated their choices. If you failed, they could say, "See, that's why I never tried." If you failed, they could use you as proof that their doubt was justified. But your endurance robbed them of that comfort. Your persistence stole their excuse. Your victory dismantled the story they told themselves. And now, they are left with nothing but the reality that their fear tried to hide. You weren't the fool. You were the visionary. The chosen ones must live with this tension, to be doubted first, to be mocked second, to be resisted always, and then to be proven right in the end. That cycle repeats in every season of your life. And though it hurts, though it isolates you, though it feels unfair, it also crowns you. Because every time you are proven right, your authority grows. Every time your vision manifests, your influence expands. Every time your intuition comes to life, your purpose is confirmed. This is why you cannot quit, no matter how heavy the journey feels. Because the same people who doubt you now will one day have no choice but to face the truth that they feared from the beginning. But don't let their fear turn into your bitterness. You don't need to prove them wrong. You just need to keep proving yourself faithful. You don't need to shout, "I told you so." Your life itself will be the testimony. Your results will be the evidence. Your resilience will be the answer. And when that evidence appears, no voice of mockery will be able to drown it out. The truth doesn't need defending. It needs revealing. And you, chosen one, are the vessel of that revelation. So keep standing strong in silence when they mock. Keep walking forward when they doubt. Keep preparing quietly when they laugh. Because their fear is not in your words, it is in your accuracy. It is in your ability to see what they can't, to hold on to what they drop, to believe what they reject, and to build what they abandoned. Their biggest fear is not that you dream too big, but that your dreams are real. And the moment reality proves you right, their fear becomes undeniable. Their biggest fear is not the noise you make, but the truth you carry. They can ignore your words for a while. They can dismiss your vision for a season. But when life starts aligning with what you've been saying all along, they are left without defense. That is when fear sets in. Not fear of you as a person, but fear of what your accuracy represents. Because if you are right, then every excuse they clung to, every doubt they projected onto you, every limitation they imposed on themselves, all of it was a lie. And nothing terrifies people more than realizing they have been living in self-deception. Chosen ones don't just carry dreams, they carry timelines. You have sensed what was coming long before others could see it. You prepared in silence while others laughed. You planted when the ground looked barren, because you trusted what you felt even when there was no evidence. And now, as the fruit begins to appear, they are unsettled. Because deep down, they remember the words you spoke, the conviction you carried, the confidence you refused to surrender. They remember how certain you were. And now that certainty is being confirmed, their biggest fear is materializing right in front of them. And notice how they react when you're proven right. They don't celebrate you, not at first. They grow quiet. They avoid the subject. They try to rationalize it, to water it down, to pretend it isn't as significant as it is. Why? Because to celebrate you would mean admitting they doubted you. To recognize your victory would mean acknowledging their own lack of faith. And most people are not ready to face that. It's easier for them to stay silent than to confess that the one they mocked is the one they should have believed. But their silence is not your defeat. It is your confirmation. Their hesitation is proof. Their unease is the evidence that what you carried was real all along. They may not clap, but their quiet is loud enough. because they cannot deny what stands in front of them. They may never say it out loud, but their eyes say it all. You were right. And here is the weight of being chosen. You must live with the tension of being doubted until your truth unfolds. You must walk through loneliness, through mockery, through rejection, knowing that the same people who resist you now will one day be forced to face your accuracy. That is not an easy burden, but it is a sacred one. Because your accuracy doesn't just prove you right, it awakens others. Your truth disrupts their lies. Your vision exposes their blindness. Your conviction challenges their complacency. And that is what they truly fear. Remember this. Their fear is not about you winning. It's about them losing their illusions. Because if you're right, then they can no longer hide behind doubt. If you're right, then they can no longer excuse their inaction. If you're right, then they must confront the fact that they laughed at destiny when it was standing right in front of them. That realization is heavier than any argument you could ever have with them. That is why your accuracy is so threatening. It forces people to see themselves clearly. But don't carry their fear as your burden. You were never responsible for their belief. You were never responsible for their vision. You were never responsible for their courage. You were only responsible for holding on to your own. And you did. You stayed faithful when they doubted. You stayed strong when they mocked. You stayed consistent when they resisted. And because of that, their biggest fear is now their reality. You were right, so let them wrestle with it. Let them avoid you. Let them whisper. Let them stay silent in discomfort. None of it changes the truth. The truth stands. The truth speaks. The truth manifests. And you, chosen one, are the vessel of that truth. Their fear is not your problem. It is their awakening. And whether they admit it or not, your accuracy is proof that destiny cannot be denied. Their biggest fear was never the words you spoke. It was the possibility that those words carried weight. Because if your words had weight, it meant their laughter was hollow. If your vision had substance, it meant their disbelief was weakness. And if your path was truly aligned, it meant they had been wrong to doubt you all along. That is what they cannot accept. Not your courage, not your vision, not your persistence, but your accuracy. Accuracy is what terrifies them because it exposes every excuse they ever lived by. Chosen ones always experience this cycle, mocked in the beginning, doubted in the middle, respected in the end. But the road from the beginning to the end is long and lonely. You had to keep walking when no one clapped. You had to keep building when no one believed. You had to keep carrying your vision while everyone else called it foolishness. And though it hurt, though it made you question yourself, though it left you standing alone, it also refined you. Their disbelief was the fire, but you were the gold. Their laughter was the storm, but you were the tree that grew deeper roots because of it. And now, as your roots grow into fruit, they can no longer deny it. The truth is visible. The reality is undeniable. And their biggest fear has arrived. They must face the fact that you were right. You weren't lucky. You weren't reckless. You weren't delusional. You were aligned, faithful, and chosen. And that revelation terrifies them because it forces them to face what they abandoned in themselves. Think about how many times you sensed what was coming long before anyone else did. You didn't have evidence, but you had conviction. You didn't have support, but you had faith. You didn't have applause, but you had alignment. And in the end, those things carried you further than noise ever could. They thought you were building castles in the sky, but now they see those castles standing on the ground in front of them. They thought your dreams would fade, but now those dreams are shaping reality. And every piece of proof shakes them, because it confirms the one thing they never wanted to admit. You were right. But here's what you must understand. Their fear is also their awakening. They may never admit it, but your accuracy forces them to rethink their own lives. They begin to wonder, what if I had believed? What if I had acted? What if I had stayed consistent? Your life becomes a mirror of what could have been, and that reflection is painful. But it's also powerful, because it can inspire change. Your truth doesn't just validate you, it pushes others to confront themselves. And that confrontation is exactly what they've been avoiding. And so, their reactions vary. Some withdraw, unable to face you because you remind them of their own surrender. Some grow hostile, trying to tear you down so they can silence the proof. And some quietly respect you, even if they never say it, because they know deep down that you carried something they didn't. All of these reactions prove the same point. Their biggest fear has always been you being right. Because your being right doesn't just validate you. It invalidates the lies they've been living. But chosen one, don't let their fear weigh you down. Don't let their silence make you bitter. Don't let their resistance discourage you. You were not called to be understood. You were called to be undeniable. And undeniable is exactly what you've become. The proof is your life. The evidence is your endurance. The testimony is your consistency. And those things are louder than any argument, stronger than any doubt, greater than any fear. So walk forward with peace, knowing this. You don't have to convince them anymore. You don't have to argue, explain, or defend. Reality has already defended you. Destiny has already argued for you. Truth has already proven you right. And whether they ever say it out loud or not, they know it. They feel it, and they fear it. Because their biggest fear is not your failure, not your silence, not even your success. Their biggest fear is that from the very beginning, you were right. Their biggest fear has never been the battles you lost, but the victories you quietly prepared for. They could dismiss your struggles. They could point at your setbacks. They could laugh when things seemed small. But what they couldn't dismiss was the persistence that never left you. Because persistence always leads somewhere. And deep inside, they feared the day your persistence would turn into proof. Now, as the pieces of your journey come together, their fear is being realized. Not because you shouted, not because you fought to convince them, but because you stayed true long enough for reality to catch up with your vision. Think of how many times you stood alone in silence, carrying truths no one else could understand. They thought your silence was surrender. They mistook your quiet for doubt. But silence was never weakness. It was strategy. While they mocked, you listened. While they doubted, you learned. While they wasted energy speaking against you, you conserved energy building within yourself. And now, your silence has spoken louder than their noise. Your endurance has become the undeniable evidence they never wanted to face. Chosen ones are always measured by the accuracy of their conviction. People don't remember the noise. They remember the results. They don't fear your words. They fear the day your words are proven right. Because when that day comes, it forces them to admit that what they resisted was never foolishness. It was truth. And truth always comes with weight. It carries consequences. If you were right, then they were wrong. If you were right, then their excuses collapse. If you were right, then their doubt was cowardice, not wisdom. And no one likes to face that reflection. That is why you've noticed how people change when proof begins to appear. The same ones who were loud in mockery become silent in your presence. The same ones who laughed when you planted now avoid you when the fruit appears. The same ones who called you delusional now watch carefully, unwilling to admit what their eyes can no longer deny. That shift in their behavior is the manifestation of their biggest fear. They are watching you being right. And here is the deeper truth. You didn't have to prove them wrong. You didn't need to spend your energy defending yourself. The truth always defends itself. All you had to do was endure long enough for time to reveal it. That is the mark of the chosen ones. You are patient enough to let destiny unfold. disciplined enough to keep building without validation, strong enough to stay consistent without applause. That consistency is what terrifies them most, because it guarantees that one day your vision will become visible. But don't let their fear become your burden. You don't exist to make them comfortable. You don't carry your vision to soothe their insecurities. You weren't chosen to fit their understanding. You were chosen to stretch beyond it. And stretching always looks uncomfortable to those who are unwilling to move. Your growth is their mirror. Your faith is their exposure. Your accuracy is their greatest fear. So hold your head high when they avoid you. Walk boldly when they whisper about you. Keep moving when they doubt you again. Because every step you take confirms what they already know but won't admit. You are right. Not because you argued better, not because you shouted louder, but because you endured longer. And endurance always wins. The truth is, chosen ones don't need to chase validation. You don't need recognition to confirm what you already know. Every season you survived, every seed you planted, every step you took was enough to confirm your calling. And now, as the proof becomes undeniable, their fear speaks louder than their voices ever did. They don't have to say it. You can see it in their silence. Their biggest fear has arrived. You were right. Their biggest fear was never the battles you lost, but the moment your vision stood in the light of reality. They could dismiss your ideas when they were only words. They could laugh at your conviction when it was only silence. But now, as your life itself becomes the evidence, they have nowhere left to hide. Their fear is no longer a secret. It is written in their hesitation, their quiet, their uneasy glances. They are not afraid of your voice. They are afraid of your accuracy. Because accuracy cannot be ignored. Chosen one, you know this journey was never easy. You carried truths alone, planted seeds while mocked, endured storms in silence. You were labeled, doubted, and misunderstood. And yet, you never abandoned what you knew deep inside. That knowing was your anchor. That conviction was your compass. And now, every step you took in faith has become a map others cannot deny. Their biggest fear has unfolded before their very eyes. You were right. But being right was never about proving them wrong. You didn't walk this road for revenge, you walked it for purpose. You didn't endure for applause, you endured for alignment. You didn't survive to silence their laughter, you survived to reveal your destiny. And that is why the weight of your journey matters. Because it shows that truth doesn't need noise. It doesn't need defending. It doesn't need validation. Truth only needs time, and time has spoken on your behalf. Notice how they respond now. Some grow distant because your accuracy makes them confront their own inaction. Some grow silent because your persistence proves their excuse is false. And some secretly respect you, even if they never say it, because your life became undeniable evidence of what they gave up on too soon. All of these reactions are rooted in the same fear, the fear of you being right. Because if you were right, it means they wasted years hiding behind doubt instead of building like you did. And here is your responsibility now, to walk forward without bitterness. Don't carry their fear as your own. Don't waste energy demanding recognition. Don't let their silence distract you from your purpose. Being chosen means your proof is enough. Your endurance is enough. Your life is enough. The results speak louder than their voices ever could. And that should give you peace. So keep moving, keep building, keep trusting. Because your journey doesn't end with being right. It begins there. The moment your vision proves true is not the conclusion, but the launch of something greater. Their fear may linger, their whispers may continue, but none of it can stop what has already been revealed. The truth is out. The proof is visible. The destiny is undeniable. They feared this moment more than anything, because it forces them to face themselves. But for you, it is freedom. Freedom to know that your faith was not in vain. Freedom to know that your persistence mattered.